Broadcasting from the Ante Up studio, it's the longest running poker podcast for the everyday poker player with your host, Joe Scale.
Hello, A-Team. It's Friday, March 31st, the last day of March. April is already shaping up to be a busy one. We're going to be in Schenectady for the Electric City Poker Series, then Chicago for the Camp One Step Charity Tournament on April 20th. I hope to see a lot of you guys at these events. The magazine's going to be coming out on Monday as well. I had originally planned to get it out on the 1st, but I made a decision for it to be digital so that it would be easy for you to read it wherever you are. That means it's a new program, and I want to make sure I work out all the kinks before I release it to you guys. So be looking for it on Monday. It's new, and there's going to be a learning curve for you and I both. So if you have thoughts or questions, ideas, send them to editor@anteupmagazine.com. All right, let's get on with the show.
Find out what conversations are happening around the poker table with Table Talk.
Here we are back around the poker table, and we've got Mike with us again. How you doing, Mike?
All in, brother. I'm all in.
You're all in.
Sorry. Hold on, guys. Just y'all hold it down for a minute. I gotta do this with Joe. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. The magazine comes out in a couple of days. I had originally planned on it being on Saturday the 1st, but I think it's best if it comes out on Monday, but super excited about it.
That's exactly right. And y'all will be reading on that thing now while you're listening.
Yeah. So everybody, when you're at the poker tables, you'll have some reading material when you're not in the hand.
I tell you, well, you can have some reading material at other places too, but
yeah,
that's okay. Hey, so tell me, what's on your list for today? Because I just had something I wanted to ask you. Is all. What did you have anybody else hop on the bandwagon with me when we was talking about staking people?
I've sold 35% of
What?
myself.
Good Lord!
For the main event. So some more out there if anybody wants to jump on board with it. We've got 2 weeks-ish before the main event, maybe 2.5 weeks before the main event. So
that's awesome. Guess what happened to me?
What?
I was sitting around the table over here just the other night, and after we talked last week, and I mentioned that, and before I left, I was 100% staked. 100% staked.
What?
I was like, yeah. I asked him, I said, are y'all serious? You all want to, yeah, Mike, well, what do you want it? Rare, medium? I said, oh, you dogs. Yeah, so whatever. Oh, nice, brother, nice. Well, I expect there's going to be more folks coming along. We got a long time before we're going up. There's a couple more, 3 more weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to see what happens there.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't wait to be sitting at the tables and playing.
I like to see how it works out, taking the percentages and stuff, paying out the percentages. And
speaking of being at the tables, last week's poll question was, should there be food at the table?
Sloppy food, anyhow. Mustard and...
Yeah, so a couple of people said, it kind of depends on if it's messy food or not, right? And one person said it depends on if it's a home game.
Oh yeah,
or in the casino.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm having a home game and we're drinking, we're gonna have pizza. I'm sorry, and chocolate and everything else, sloppy cards.
Like somebody said, I don't even remember who it was, but somebody I was talking to said that it's part of the payment. Kind of when you're going to some home games, you go to their house and they plan on ordering pizza or making some food,
barbecue and stuff
whatever,
like that. Yeah.
I mean,
I think mainly mainly I was talking about these casinos I go to and want to, and we're playing.
Well, it was funny because one person we were talking about the sandwich. They said, well, there's the 4th Earl of Sandwich, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Fourth Earl of Sandwich.
Fourth Earl of Sandwich. So there's an excerpt from a writer in the 1770s that says, this is a quote from his writing that says, a minister of state passed 24 hours at a public gaming table, so absorbed in play that during the whole time he had no substance but a bit of beef between 2 slices of toasted bread, which he ate without ever quitting the game.
He had a roast beef sandwich.
The new dish grew highly in vogue during his residence in London, and that person was the 4th Earl of Sandwich.
4th Earl of Sandwich. Oh my God! I'm telling you, did he? I really want to know if he had any mustard on that puppy.
Right.
Now it takes us. We can do another poll question: roast beef on toast. Do we have mustard or mustard and horseradish, y'all? No, we'll do that some other day.
Not horseradish.
Oh yeah, got to have it all. Lay that stuff on there. So, anyways, what was the outcome of our poll?
Between all of our social media, 60% said no food at the tables.
Okay.
So 40% said, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
So,
but then we justify it with sloppy foods and not sloppy foods. There's little things there all the way, but 60% of the people that you're playing with don't want you to be slopping on the cards. Right. Just y'all remember that one. I'll remember it when I grab my roast beef sandwich. And I'll be thinking of the Earl too.
And one person said no alcohol should be served at the tables, but I think
I disagree.
I think I understand.
Here, I'll buy the drinks, guys. Y'all keep drinking.
I think I understand where they were going with that, but at the same time, drinks at the tables has helped me win a few pots here and there for sure.
I was getting ready to say, I think I've won a few. I think I brought home a lot more money than I would have in some of these games with the drinks at the tables. And I wasn't upset because I told them before we started, boys, I'm drinking ginger ale and Coke. Yeah. It's a mixed drink, but it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
So I'm playing poker. Yeah, I don't, unless I'm having a home game with friends, I don't mix my alcohol in poker.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Home game is different all around, right?
Now, when I get bumped out, like I did when I was with you the last time at that casino, I went to the bar and Joe come over. Guys, Joe had to come over to the bar and ask me what I was doing. Okay.
Well, one last thing I kind of wanted to touch on is, I don't know if you've heard much about this poker match between Matt Berkey and Nick Airball.
They just want to make sure they finish it and don't miss a session or quit it. I'll tell you that much. That's going to be a nice match.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. They've been going back and forth on Twitter for a while. They hired a mediator to help them get through all of the rules of the contract. So Phil Galfond is mediating because after they set all these terms, which, by the way, the terms are they're going to play 200, 400 blinds with a 400 big blind ante, 100K minimum. So there's no max, but there's going to be 3 sessions, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, each week, 6.5 hours per session.
Yep.
So the match will last 100 hours, and either player can quit when they're down $1 million.
Okay.
So there's a $10,000 penalty for a missed session or quitting early.
Well, you don't want to quit early unless you're down $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. So
wow.
Then Nick Airball, he had come back and wanted to have a friend of his on the rail. And Berkey said he didn't like that idea because it's supposed to be one-on-one.
Yep, exactly.
So they went back and forth on that, and I think they've got that sorted out. But this may be, it may be going back and forth for a while until they actually sit down and play. But we'll see.
Let me tell you, the terms of this thing, though, that I've read, I don't think there should be somebody at your rail. It's you and him. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to look over there and wonder if his buddy's got that eyelash that he keeps pulling right there for some reason or the other. I just, no. It's one-on-one.
Yeah, and, even having somebody there that can give you updates because it's going to be live streamed, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't want anybody able to give you updates or
Yeah,
anything
nothing.
like that.
Hey, I
So,
don't. Nobody around. The dealer, and you and him, and mediator. That's it. And they can live stream
I
it all
mean,
they want, but shut it down. Shut it down.
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm not 100% sure about that. It may not be live streamed, but if it's not, then they're missing an opportunity.
I tell you what, they darn sure are. Holy cow.
So that's really it's an interesting match between the two. You know,
Yeah.
Berkey is a poker coach at Solve for Why. He's been there forever.
Yeah.
Nick Airball is he's a player on the Hustler Casino live stream, and he can sling some money around for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck to both them gentlemen.
Yep.
I hope y'all have fun with it. And if you live stream it, I'm probably going to watch some of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for the heck of it. We're going to keep our eyes on you. And before we go, Joe, there's one thing I'd like to ask
Okay.
you. And maybe you'd use it as a poll question for next week. I know you could be something you could use as hand of the week even. But I just want to throw this out there real quick.
Okay.
I was playing in a tournament, 3 nights ago? And we had 9 players that started. $1,500 each, and we were going at it. Long story short, it came down to where we were only paying out the first and second place winners. Okay.
Okay.
And it came down to heads up between another fella and me. Now, can you believe that? Me, Big Mike. I'm sitting over there just sweating nails and trying to smile.
Right.
I'm playing good poker. And me and this fella, we were about 50-50 on chips. Now, he might have had 52 and I had 48%, something like that. We played for about 20, 30 more minutes, going back and forth. You know how you go down where you got 25%, 30, and go back up. We played and played and played for about 25, 30 minutes, and we were right back where we started, about half the chips each. I think I had 700 or 800 more than him, okay? And I was on the button. Cards went out. As soon as the cards went out, he shoved. I need to look at mine. I'm sure he saw his cards.
Okay.
But, I mean, it was one of those deal, shove. So I had to take a peek at mine, and I had an ace-queen suited of hearts. And I got him covered with about 700 left. Now, that's, that's not even a big blind right at that point.
True.
But that's my question right there, guys. What should I have done? Called him? Folded? That's my question. So let's
all right. I won't
throw that out as a poll question.
All right. I'm not gonna give my input. I'll give you my input next week. We'll see what the A team has to say.
Yeah. I'd love to see what they have to say. Do you got everything you need to write that up, or you need me to send it to you?
You're gonna have to send it to me. I think I've got it, but send it to me. And
yeah, because I'd like to throw that in the kitty. I got a better one for the hand of the week where I really got hurt. But well, thank you for letting me rant about that, because I need to know what the A team would do before I tell y'all what I do.
Well, that sounds good. We will talk again next week.
All right, brother. All right, A team, power to the poker players. Ooh.
Now it's time for Call the Floor with Elliot Schechter.
Elliot Schechter is the poker room manager for Rivers Casino in Schenectady, New York. He joins us each week to say how he would rule on situations that come up in your games, and he's with me again this week. Hey, Elliot, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Joe. How you doing today?
I am doing well. We're recording this a little bit early, so baseball season's getting ready to start. The World Baseball Classic just ended. It was a great tournament series. It's a great time of year.
The Classic was well named. This was a really, really great tournament to watch. Excellent stories every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the weather's turning warm. People are starting to get out. Everybody's in a little bit better mood when it's warm, which is always good. So
it's good for poker.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. And speaking of poker, we have kind of a different take on things this week. It's going to be a little bit more like an explanation of the rules, I think, this week. But it's sent in, or it was posted actually on the Ante Up Fans Facebook page by Travis Marks. And he says, I've got a unique question. 3 players in the hand, short stack is all in pre for less. First to act player A checked dark as he normally does. Other player B also checks dark, and before the flop comes out, the original player A checks turn dark. So basically they checked it down.
Right.
So their question is, at what point is checking it down like that collusion? They didn't specifically say, let's check it down the whole way. So, at what point is that against the rules, I guess?
All right. Well, we have our Call the Floor special edition, Consult the Floor.
Yeah, there you go.
This can be a touchy situation, and I see what Travis is talking about. Poker is a singular endeavor. It's one player to a hand and one hand to a player. No team play, no collusive behavior is allowed. This was not overt collusion, and is certainly a little bit collusive in appearance. Very technically not. I mean, nobody was acting out of turn.
Right.
Nobody was explicitly telling somebody else to do something, nor explaining why they were doing it. It was just checked down, which is the way poker is going to be played in tournaments, especially when you're down to the last several players and you're paying out the money and having 2 live hands against an all-in player at the showdown is much more meaningful to the remaining players than having only 1 player left.
Yeah.
To show down.
Yeah, tournament's a little bit different in that aspect than cash, so for sure.
That being said, I am going to enforce penalties and warnings when players are much more open about this. I have sent people to the rail even when the blinds will essentially eat them up because they violated rules.
Sure.
And I wouldn't hesitate in other spots. This really doesn't come down on that side of the line. It's certainly allowed. It's not encouraged, but it's pretty natural. As long as they're not checking in a manner that's much different and guiding than they've acted previously in this tournament.
Well, let's take it one step further then and say that the person was all in and neither one of them had needed to look at their cards because they were small blind, big blind, whatever. Mathematically, it was right. So they don't look at their cards and they announce, I'm not even looking at my cards, I check. Does it change?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Even with that seemingly innocuous statement, it becomes a rather guiding statement.
Yeah.
You're trying to lead your fellow opponent into doing the same thing to increase everyone's chances of a higher payout. It's subtle in a way, but we're allowed to take context and experience into account and move from there. When looking at it that way, it's not particularly subtle, and it does violate the rules of the game.
Yeah. It's one of those that in tournaments, it's like you said, it's pretty common. It's not, from a mathematical standpoint, 2 against 1 is always a little bit better odds, right? But I think one of the comments was, let's say one of them had the nuts, they would have to bet, right?
They would certainly be encouraged to bet. And again, the player with position would eventually have to bet.
Yeah.
The player under the gun doesn't necessarily have to bet because you could always claim that they were going for a check raise.
Right.
To increase the size of the pot. So, yeah, if you're under the gun with the nuts, you don't necessarily have to bet. But if we're on the river and you've got the final act and you do have the nuts and you don't bet in that spot, especially in this very specific spot where a player is all in and you're betting on the side and you don't bet, well, we got a serious problem.
That's true. Yeah. Then it's some serious penalties.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty cut and dry deal there, but I did feel like it was important to address that one and give it some clarification for sure. But was there anything else you wanted to add to that, Elliot?
I suppose that, once again, while not every situation is the same, if you got a question about what's happening or you are concerned about what's happening, call the floor.
There you go. Perfect words to end on. All right. Well, if you have a call the floor that you would like Elliot to go through, then send it in to podcast@anteupmagazine.com.
Let's break it down with Hand of the Week.
All right, here we are with another hand of the week, and we've got Patrick here for another week. A win and a half now.
Win and a half. We're what did we say? Wash there, but yeah, win and a half, and we're on to the next week. That's what we're gonna call it. So
before we get into the hand this week, Drew Cohen actually reached out with a different perspective on last week's hand. So I want to touch on it real quick before I get into this week's hand. If you remember, last week we had pocket queens, and we ended up 4-betting pre-flop. We got called, and the flop came ace, jack, 4, rainbow. Drew's thought was, should we have turned our hand into a bluff on the flop since we have the betting lead?
Interesting.
Yeah. So I sent Drew a response. I'm going to sum that up, but then I want to hear what you think, Patrick.
Sure.
So what I sent Drew, trying to turn an ace-high board into a bluff, it's pretty tough. First of all, we still have pocket queens, so we may not need to be bluffing. But if that is the route, then we started the hand with 850, right? Pre-flop, we were in for 150. So if we bet half pot as a C bet, then we only have 550 left in our stack. So now if he comes over the top, then we're in kind of a gross spot. And we have to end up fold or after committing over a third of our stack. I don't feel like there are a lot of hands there that we're worried about that would actually have much fold equity either. So if Merton doesn't 4-bet the hand pre-flop, maybe we could get away with a few more options. But as it was played, a 4-bet kind of polarizes our hand quite a bit. We've either got nothing or we've got something big, right? So
yeah, because then at that point, if I'm doing the math right in my head, just remembering back then, did he 4-bet on the flop or
no? He 4-bet pre-flop.
That's what I thought. That was pre-flop. So I mean, at that point, it's hard for at least from my point of view, the novice point of view, looking at it was at that point, it's hard to really put a good bluff bet in because he's gone in so big. You've already called to see the flop, and now
Right. So when he calls a 4-bet, what are you getting to fold there?
Yeah.
So on an ace high board. Now, if it was all low cards.
Yeah, if you're sitting there
but then you're not bluffing.
2-8, whatever. Yeah, you're good to go. I see what you're getting at. That's an interesting look at it. I don't know that you would have come out. I mean, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but I don't think you would have come out smelling like roses on that one. And it's hard, at least again from my point of view, just looking at the amount of chips to really put in a good bluff bet of how many's already in the pot.
Right.
So
yeah. And as it turned out, he had flopped the straight. So
yeah.
That makes it even
it's hard to bluff that one.
Yeah. Well, the hand this week is sent in by Joe Welton. Nice name, Joe.
Great name, Joe.
He's playing 2-5, no limit. He has $2,000 in his stack, but he's the second shortest stack at the table. There are 7 others with over 5K, and the shortest stack is a little under 1K. So we start the hand. The middle position, which is also the short stack, raises to $20.
You say we're playing 2-5, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The low jack calls, and we have
pocket deuces. All right.
We've got pocket deuces in the hijack. So what are you going to do with that? You've got a middle position that raised you. Low jack called. You're next
and
to him with
the
pocket
$20
deuces,
raise.
And you've got the cutoff and blinds and button left.
Well, I'm calling. I'm going to play this hand. If that, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go any more than that. So let's go ahead and call and see what happens.
All right. So Joe actually calls as well.
Okay.
And the cutoff raises to 125. It folds around to the middle position who calls, and the low jack calls.
So we got 3 hands in, and then it comes to me.
Yeah.
At 125.
At 125.
And I'm already in for what?
20.
For 20.
So it's 105 to you.
And repeat back the stacks that we have. So I have 2,000.
You've got 2,000. The shortest stack was the original raiser with the 20. And everybody else has over 5K.
So for me, I mean, I will say this one. It's the way that I at least play this game, and I looking at this hand, I would probably bet this only to see the flop. I have a pocket pair already. So I don't have any background exactly how everyone's been playing, but I'm probably going to call that and see at least the flop.
All right. Well, that's what Joe Welton does as well.
Okay.
So you've got 4 players that see a flop. There's $500 out there now. And the miracle flop comes out with 6 of clubs, 2 of spades, 8 of diamonds. You hit your set.
Trips it is.
Before we get into this, let's talk about a little definition.
Okay. Let's hear it. Teach me.
Do you know the difference between a set and trips?
Well, I'm going to say with you teaching me this, no. Because to me, it's the same thing, which is my novice point of view on this.
Yeah, that's why I wanted the sidebar here.
Okay, all right.
Because there are a lot of people that this is their pet peeve, right? Because there's a big difference between a set and trips. So, in this hand, we have a set because we have 2 in our hand and there's 1 on the board.
Okay. Is trips 1 in our hand, 2 on the board?
So trips, yeah, you would have.
Hey, I'm a quick learner at least. All right. Okay, that's good to know.
So,
I'm not necessarily...
so if you've got a set, then it's more disguised, obviously.
Makes sense.
So that's why it's such a big difference there.
That's good to know, though. I mean, if anyone else was in my boat out there that doesn't know, and if not, my apologies. But hey, we learn to live. So all right. So we've got the set of deuces. Middle position leads out for 125. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was an original bet too.
He was the one that originally let out for 20.
For 20.
He opened for 20. Yeah.
And then he got raised to
right.
120. Okay, so he starts at 125 now.
Yeah. So low jack raises to 400, and you've got a set of deuces.
So I started with 2,000. I'm in for what 145? Am I doing the math right there?
You're in for 125.
I'm in for 125.
Yeah.
Okay, and they bet 400.
Yeah, they just raised to 400. Now what?
I got a call. I've got my hands. Obviously, I'm getting low on chips, but I mean that puts me in for basically over a quarter of my chips at this point.
Yeah. So Joe also calls. Okay. The cutoff folds, and the middle position calls the raise.
Okay.
So there's $2,100 in the pot, and you've got 3 players to the turn, which is the 9 of hearts.
That's a terrible card to come out.
Now, the short stack goes all in for 448, the last of his. The low jack calls. What's your play?
His all in is how much?
448.
So that puts us in for over half or just shy, still shy of half our chips. The all in, I mean, he's got to have it straight, right? He's got to have, 7-10, 5-7. That's at least my thought process. I don't know what to do. My gut says to fold and walk away and live to fight another day, in all honesty. So that's probably what I would do.
Okay. All right. Joe calls.
Good for him.
There's $3,444 in the pot. The river is the 8 of spades. The low jack checks to you. Oof. What are you going to do with a boat now?
I'm going all in. If I'm Joe and I'm in this, I'm going all in. Right? And that's
reasonable.
That's reasonable.
Joe grabbed 1,000 out of his stack, which has to be all of his.
At that point, right? Yeah.
But ultimately, he checks back.
Interesting. All right.
The result is I win with deuces full of 8s. Small stack, the one that went all in, had the 5 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds.
Okay. So called him on his 5-7. There you go.
And the low jack mucks, so we don't know what he had. He says, I should have bet the river, but checked because I thought the low jack had a better set and wasn't sure if I was going to call his all in. I had put low jack on pocket 6s or 8s due to the raise post flop and panicked as the pot got bigger. So my questions are, or Joe Welton's questions are, I flat called the raise on the flop because the low jack 3-bet, and I now had 2 callers behind me. I wanted to see who else would call without setting off alarm bells. Figured I couldn't get much more value and would only isolate better sets. Was this correct? And then his second question is post-flop, should I have known or assumed there was a player with an open-ended straight draw? With the pre-flop action, I figure a holding of 5 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds is not in play. I believe my call on the turn was correct. So there's a lot to unravel here.
There is, no doubt about it. It is interesting to hear the different mindsets, how we all play this, play the game, because as soon as the bet came in after, I immediately went, someone had the open, had the straight draw. That was just my mindset when that one came in. And then it was, okay, well, I'm maybe I should go away, maybe I shouldn't, but.
Personally, I don't think pocket 2 should not have been in this hand. Pocket 2 should never have gotten here. You got really, really, really lucky, Joe. Really lucky. You've got a tiny pocket pair in early position with numerous people behind you who can squeeze.
Yeah.
So the first $20, I would have folded. Simply because who's making the raise is the shortest stack at the table. You feel like he's got something.
True.
Now, we don't know table dynamics. There could be just a huge whale at the table that's spewing money and you want to get in on that. But if that's not the reason, why are you in the hand? Then it's 3-bet.
And you still do
and
it. I like it.
Run. Run. Set mining 4 ways is not profitable.
Yeah, it's true.
When looking at it in the long term, in this case it worked out, but set mining with pocket deuces 4 ways, if you keep doing that, then I invite you to come to my next game. Flop and turn, I guess it's fine. It's whatever. But again, you shouldn't be there. Then once you river the boat, you get scared. You made your miracle, and then you got scared.
That is a good point. And look, he played the hand better than I did. I will say the other Joe. But that's a tough one, especially as he described that he went ahead and pulled his chips and then just couldn't do it because he panicked on that. Yeah, when you get your hero flop there, that's when you just go full bore.
Right.
You can't. I don't know if you make anyone on something that's going to take you down there.
First of all, you hit your miracle flop with the 2. You bet big enough at that point to get the straight draw out is your goal.
Right. Yeah.
Then, if they do call, then fine, whatever. You shouldn't have been in the hand, lesson learned. Then you get bailed out on the river with an 8 to make a boat, and now you're scared of 6s and 8s or 9s. Then why were you in the hand?
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is, I knew I was beat pre-flop. I thought I was beat on the flop. I thought I was beat on the river and the turn.
Yeah.
Why?
But I bet all the way through it and then got to the end and couldn't do it. You know what? I would love to hear. You'll have to email and find out. How he did the rest of the night, because that's a lucky one right there. I want to hear how the rest of the night went with him on that one.
That's a fair point. Yeah,
because
that's a fair point.
I feel like that is just sitting on it ready to go the rest of the night.
I hope you picked up your horseshoe and went off from the table.
It's a good point.
All right. Well, Joe, I'm sorry for completely bashing you on that hand, but it was awful played by you, but it was also awful played. I didn't even mention this. The 5-7 of diamonds is also awful.
Yeah.
What are you doing in the hand too? But that's a whole different story. Patrick, I appreciate you being here another week, and we'll do this again.
Absolutely. I appreciate being here. Hey, and the other Joe out there, you know what? You could take that one.
All right. Hey, if you guys have another hand of the week you'd like me to bash you on, go over, then send it in to podcast@anteupmagazine.com.
The question is, how you running?
All right, here we are with Thomas Swim. He is our Northeast ambassador. And, of course, the first question is always, how you running, Thomas?
Well, I went up to the WSOP circuit event at Turning Stone yesterday, and I think I made it a whole blind level. So I think that gives you some kind of a good idea about how I was running. It was a turbo, so I was just trying to find my spot to get it in and double up. But that's how I'm sort of running right now.
That's still rough, turbo or not. That's rough, but
yeah.
But there's a few things that you've got going on there. We said we were going to talk about, but let's start with your own event there at Rivers.
Yeah, so coming up in Schenectady, New York, we have at the Rivers Casino, we have our own Electric City Series event. I believe you're coming up and playing a couple of the events up there.
I've mentioned the Rivers Revival is the one I'm most looking forward to. Actually selling a piece of myself, not just kind of happened last week's podcast, but for the main event, some of the listeners have reached out and offered to buy some pieces of me for that too. So I'll be playing those two for sure, and probably a few more.
Yeah, the Rivers Revival event, we're running, I think, 2 times during the series. It's really interesting. Yeah. It's when you bust, you automatically come back in with 20 big blinds, regardless of when it is. You could be heads up at the final table. If you have not busted and then you bust, you come back with 20 big blinds. So it provides a really interesting dynamic because, once you get deep into tournaments like that, 20 big blinds can be the big stack at the table.
Absolutely.
So it does provide a really interesting little rift into what would be a relatively normal tournament. And there are guarantees for those who don't know, if you want to go on the Rivers Casino website and look it up, there are guarantees on all of our events. Some of them are bigger, some are smaller, but for the Rivers Revival events, they are 10,000 guaranteed. So there will be opportunity. My expectation is there's a chance at some overlays during this series. So there's definitely some value to be taken that you can get by showing up to the Electric City Poker Series in Schenectady, New York, coming up in a couple of weeks. It is the April 11th through April 23rd. The event I'm most interested in talking about, if I can continue on for just a second, is the Mystery Bounty. I haven't seen really a Mystery Bounty event in the Northeast before. I believe, without, checking a crazy amount of history, I believe this is the first one that's taking place in the Northeast. It's a $400 Mystery Bounty, $75K guaranteed. I think the biggest Mystery Bounty is going to be $10K. Wow. Which is, a lot. And I think we're going to have a crazy turnout. My expectation is that'll be our biggest event of the series.
Oh, okay. That is pretty incredible to think about, bust one person and it could be 10 grand.
Yeah.
Those are happening once you bust the bubble, right?
Yeah. So it's day 2.
Yeah.
So it's day 2. Everybody. Yeah. That's when the mystery bounties start to get drawn. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else? What other events there do you have, or what else is going on up there?
Up here, we're all sort of getting into gearing up mode for this large, for this big series. In the Northeast, there isn't a lot going on. The Turning Stone event, the circuit event just ended. The Turning Stone event absolutely crushed this. The circuit actually absolutely crushed their numbers from last year. They were getting 30 to 40% more players than they were getting last year, and I really think it speaks to how vibrant the poker community is up here and how starved they are for good tournaments.
Right.
I know from the limited experience I had, I just went up and played the one event. I was going to go up and play the 6 Max and the PLO, but I was too sick, so I wasn't able to go. But if you're a good poker player and you come up to some of these tournaments, you can see there's value to be had.
Yeah.
From most of these people just don't play a lot of tournaments. They don't know the correct strategies, and there's definitely value to be had in playing these bigger, high guarantee events because, you get people who don't play a lot coming out to play, especially, and given the turnout at Turning Stone, I think that just a lot of dead money if you know what you're doing. I think, there's a lot of value to be had playing these bigger tournament series. If you can drive out to them or even fly out to them, people are starved for this kind of content, and when they can get it, they're coming out, regardless of skill level. Price point seems to matter a little less. With inflation going up, a $400 tournament really is only, $250, $300, so.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit last week on the podcast about how the numbers were crushing with some of the tournaments in the Midwest as well. So it's exciting to hear, how much poker is growing and how much excitement there is around the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to see. I mean, we in the Northeast, especially in my area, we always had a vibrant tournament community. There's firehouse tournaments all over the place. People love to get them, and if they can't, they create their own way, like, which is good. It's fun to see. I feel like the tournament community is different from the cash community, in that it's just more vibrant. I feel like it can be more friendly. And it opens up more opportunities. Some people just don't like playing cash, and they'll come out and fire a tournament anytime they have the opportunity. And you're starting to see more tournaments, not necessarily series, but like even if it's I've always been a big fan of the one weekend series, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, day 2 series. Those are always my favorite to play because it keeps those kinds of tournaments are mostly local. You get to really see exactly like what kind of, turnout you can get for what kind of community you have going into those kinds of events. And you will get people driving from out of town to come play. And I think those are always really fun.
Yeah. I
think Live Casino in Philly actually is running a similar event to that. I believe right now it's a Thursday. I believe it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, day 2. $500, $150K guaranteed going on at Live this weekend, which would be the 30th through the 1st of April. So if you're in town for that seems like that could probably be pretty good value if anybody's out around in Philly this week.
Use that as the gear up toward the Electric City.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a nice little warm up right there.
So I know, you've got that going on with tournaments. You've got the Electric City coming up soon. But what about cash? Is it kind of giving way to the tournaments right now, or is there a pretty good cash scene going on right now?
So, Turning Stone, was running 30 games a day during their series. Lots of 5-5 PLO. But if you look on Bravo right now, they're going to be running 2 games for the rest of, for the next 3 weeks, probably, because everybody's burned out. Yeah, cash up here is generally very steady. You see, you don't see a lot bigger north of Pennsylvania anyways, north of Philadelphia. You don't see a lot of games bigger than 5-10. You'll occasionally get a 10-25 out at MGM Springfield. People love playing that game because Rampage shows up every once in a while. And,
really?
Rampage loves dumping into that game. So, because that's where he originally started out. If you look back at his old vlogs, you'll see a lot of the MGM Springfield casino out there.
Okay.
Yeah. You do get some PLO occasionally at the MGM, or you drive out to Boston and Encore, you'll see some there too, and you'll get some at the the various casinos in New Hampshire, definitely down in Philly. They're running. I saw Philly Parks is running a 50-100 game right now, and I don't know how often that gets off, but 50-100 no limit game. I can't imagine that gets off too often down there. They're running a lot of PLO and OE and Hold'em and all that kind of stuff down there. As for promotions, it's pretty typically, you see a lot of $500 every half or every hour. It's been very steady for probably about 6 months now, where if you look day by day, week by week, all the numbers are pretty even. You go down to the Resorts World and the Catskills. They're very busy on the weekends, very slow during the week. If you're in New York City and you want to drive up to looking for some action, and you want to drive up or take the train up to Resorts World, definitely some action there to be had on weekends, not so much during the week. But day by day, week by week, you see basically the same games going at the same time during the same week north of New York City.
That makes sense.
It's been very, very steady, which is good. It's definitely not a bad thing to know exactly what you're going to get at a given time if you decide you want to go play.
Right. Speaking of New York City, what's the word on games up there now?
So right now they're in the bidding process for all the New York City casinos. There's been lots of talk of, basically no major operation is not bidding on the opportunity to have a casino in New York City, with the idea thinking regardless of the cost to build, regardless of the operating costs, it's just gonna print money.
Oh yeah.
So there's talks of out in Queens, or there's definitely going to be one. I would assume there'll be one in Manhattan somewhere, one in Queens. There's already one up in Yonkers. Might have a chance to go to. It's a it's a racino right now, but I think it might have a chance to go and turn into a full casino with table games, poker, and sports books and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But as of right now, they're sort of in a holding pattern. I don't think any major decisions are being made until the end of the year, or at least towards the end of the year. And at that point, you'll probably see licenses start to be handing out and new casinos will start being built, because they're going to be, and my assumption would be they're going to be multi-year projects. Sure. I'd be surprised if you saw a casino in New York City open in the next 2 to 3 years. I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
But
the thing that the places here in Virginia have been doing are renting out some of the old buildings and putting temporary casinos in those until the other one is built. Any word on something like that?
Have you ever been to one of those?
I have not. I don't
feel like that's a good sign, though.
Right.
I hear interesting things about those because, I mean, Rivers, I'm aware of them only because Rivers just put a new casino down in Portsmouth, which is by Virginia Beach.
Right.
And they're one of a number of casinos that have just gone in, and I know that some of them have put up those temporary casinos.
Right.
That is an interesting concept. I do not see that happening in New York City. Feels unlikely, if only because of regulation issues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that being said, when those casinos do go up, I think it's going to be probably some of the best casinos in the world. At least for, what the thing about those casinos is, though, is I'm going to be interested to see, given the problems that Encore had when they opened up in Boston. So Encore's main problem was parking when they originally opened up. They had, a 60-table room and a limited garage, and there's nowhere else to park. And Boston, and there was no train station to Encore when they opened, so they had a big issue with parking. The poker players eating up all their parking spots, which is eventually why they, when they reopened, they decided not to open poker, because Encore Poker Room was open now, but it wasn't when they initially reopened post-pandemic. But when they reopened, they decided not to reopen because they just didn't have the parking. They were committing too much money to poker players via parking spaces than they were worth to the casino anyways. So I'd be interested to see what happens with those New York City casinos and poker, only because the dollar per square foot is so much lower than slots and table games players. My worry would be if they don't have the parking, poker may take a very large backseat, or what you might see is cruise ship style rakes where they're taking $25 off they're taking 10% up to 25 or something like that, where it's really, especially if you're a low limit player, it's basically impossible to beat the rake. That would be my main concern with poker going on down in New York City. But I'm interested to see how that'll work out.
Yeah, and I kind of coming back to the point with the temporary casinos, I think that's the reason I haven't been to the temporary, because the poker doesn't get to come into those because it's not making the money that the others are.
It's hard to beat slot machines,
Yeah.
Talk about beating the house. It's hard to beat slot machines. It's really tough.
Absolutely. All right. Well, is there anything else that everybody needs to know?
There's one more thing. I saw something pretty interesting going on down in Philly. The Rivers Casino in Philadelphia is running a $50K free roll in June, which caught my eye because I hadn't seen anything like that, at least not since casinos reopened in the Northeast. It's based off your cash play. The more hours you play, the more chips you earn in their $50K free roll, and that is a large number. I was very surprised when I saw that. So if you're in the Philadelphia area, I would recommend you guys check that out, because that's a lot of value to be had, especially if you're a cash game grinder. I imagine coming in first in that tournament is going to be pretty significant if you're just if you're looking for a little bit of extra value while you're playing.
Absolutely. Wow. That's a good ROI right there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Yeah, no, it seems like something where it's just a little extra value. I mean, because of, 50K free roll. My thing is the amount of hours they require makes me wonder if it will be not that many entries. You might be looking at I'm just running numbers in my head, but I think you might only have 100 entries into this 50K free roll. I have trouble seeing more than that number. I would probably take the under on 100, to be honest. So if you're, a cash game grinder, you normally go to Live, or, you normally go to, I don't know, Parks or someplace like that, and you are, a big fan of tournaments, you might consider heading down to Rivers Casino in Philadelphia and checking that out, because it seems like an interesting little promotion they're running.
All right, very good. Well, listen, Thomas, I appreciate you jumping on here. I will see you when I make it out there for the Electric City tournament. I probably
just a couple weeks away.
Yep. You'll be working hard, so I'll probably just see you from across the room, wave a hand. And...
Yeah, it sounds right. And Joe, happy opening day.
Yes, that's right.
Opening day for baseball.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We'll go ahead and throw this out there. How are your Red Sox looking? I haven't even seen.
They're either going to win 95 games or 12 games. Which is quite the spread. I was looking at their over-under numbers. Their over-under is like 78 wins. I think I take the over on 78, but maybe not by a lot.
Yeah. Well, as everybody on here knows, I'm a Royals fan, and I'm just hoping for middle of the road at this point. So if we're in the middle of the pack this year, these young kids learn to compete, then I'll be happy with that.
I like the combination of having like a 40-year-old Zach Greinke and Bobby Witt hanging out together. He's the age of his dad, basically. Like, I think that's sort of fun, but I don't know. It's the worst team to watch if you're looking for like a little excitement this year with all those young players. So
yeah. All right, very good. Well, I appreciate that, and we'll talk again in a few weeks.
Yeah, Joe, nice to see you. I'll see you up at Rivers in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
It's time for Joe's One Outer.
There's a quote from Albert Einstein that I used to have taped on the wall above my computer at work. More the knowledge, lesser the ego. Lesser the knowledge, more the ego. Having a big ego in poker can prove costly and ultimately hurt your results. When decisions are driven by emotion and not logic, you're in trouble at the poker table. In a live setting, the player with the biggest ego is pretty easy to spot. They'll be the ones educating the table on how to play. They're also the ones bragging about their latest successes and showing bluffs with pride. They aren't necessarily bad players, but their ego will harm them in the long run, whether they know it or not. Tilt is one of the biggest challenges poker players face. Now, I know I've talked about this in my one outer before, so I'm not going to go crazy with this point, but ego is one of the biggest factors leading to tilt. Ego tricks players into believing they should be able to beat these far weaker opponents, and when that doesn't happen, their ego gets bruised, which in turn can lead to the player going on tilt. A lot of players at the poker table overrate themselves. I like to play this little game when I go to the casino. You should try this too. Ask some random players from time to time about their poker results. It's pretty incredible. Almost no one is a losing player. In fact, if everyone I asked won as often as they say, there wouldn't be any money to be had in poker. It's all being sucked up by the players in the local casino. Trust me when I say this. We're probably not as good as we think we are. I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but we typically play with a lot of the same group, so our results there may cause us to think we are far better than we actually are in relation to the bigger pool of players. So before your next session, do everything you can to remove emotion from your decision-making process. Check your ego at the door and find spots to take advantage of the tilted guy telling everyone who will listen how they should have played that last hand. That's today's one outer, and that's today's show. See you next week, A-Team, and until then, I'll see you at the tables.
The Ante Up Podcast is a production of AnteUpMagazine.com. Contact the show at podcasts@AnteUpMagazine.com or call the show at 540-339-7741. If you'd like to advertise, send an email to editor@AnteUpMagazine.com.